Organizational structure is an enterprise environmental factor which can affect the availability of resources and influence how projects are conducted. Organizational structures range from functional to projectized. There are three kinds of structures I want to show you. First, the functional organization. How does one use the functional organizational structure to administer projects? The functional organization structure brings together people who perform similar tasks or who use the same kinds of skills and knowledge in functional groups. In this structure, people are managed through clear lines of authority that extend through each group to the head of the group and ultimately to a single person at the top. Let's consider this. Depending on the nature of the project and the skills and knowledge required for it, a project in the functional structure may be handled completely by staff within a particular functional group. However, if the manufacturing group is performing a project that requires the expertise of a person from the marketing group, the vice president of manufacturing must make a formal agreement with the vice president of marketing to make the necessary marketing staffer available to work on the project. The vice president of marketing must then manage this person as he performs his tasks for the project. The project manager has the least authority over project team members in the functional structure than in any other form of project organization. In fact, he serves more as a project coordinator than a project manager because the functional managers maintain all authority over the project team members and the project budget. How do we administer projects using a projectized organization? Projectized organizations exist to work only on projects. Here, the project manager has maximum control and team members report directly to him, so it is very easy to get resources for the project. This type of structure groups together all personnel working on a particular project. Project team members are often located together and under the direct authority of the project manager for the duration of the project. Here's an example. Consider a project where the designer, IT manager, and production analyst all work on Project A, while a different designer and IT manager work on Project B. Since the project manager has maximum control, they are able to make assignments and direct team members' task efforts. They control the project budget, conduct team members' performance assessments, and approve team members' raises and bonuses. What about using a matrix organization for administering projects? Well, a matrix organization reflects a blend of functional and projectized characteristics to facilitate the responsive and effective participation of people from different parts of the organization on projects that need their specialized expertise. Under this structure, people from different areas of the organization are assigned to lead or work on projects for the duration of their need. There is a dual reporting relationship whereby project managers guide the performance of project activities while people's direct supervisors, from groups such as marketing, advertising, and operations, perform administrative tasks like formally appraising people's performance and approving promotions, salary increases, or requests for leave. Once their support to a project is completed, they return to their functional group and work with their direct supervisors who will most likely assign them to another project. Essentially, project managers extract employees from the functional organizations as needed. A matrix environment is classified as weak, strong, or balanced, depending on the amount of authority the project manager has over their team. So we can view these kinds of organizational structures across a spectrum like you see here. Functional, weak matrix, balanced matrix, strong matrix, and projectized. And to demonstrate the difference, let's just go through some ways that a project manager's authority might be different in each type of organizational structure. In a functional structure, the project manager has virtually no authority. He or she is just an expediter. The functional structure has no dedicated project managers. Neither are there any dedicated project managers in a weak matrix structure, although the project manager has some power to manage projects, and he or she acts as a coordinator who can make decisions or an expediter without any decision-making ability. A balanced matrix structure has dedicated project managers, but their authority is shared with a functional manager. When you think of a balanced matrix, I want you to think of a teeter-totter where the project manager is on one end and the functional manager is on the other end, and they are sharing or balancing authority. In a strong matrix, there are dedicated project managers who have a great deal of power. And in a projectized organizational structure, the project manager has high to almost total authority. Here, projects can be freestanding entities with staff assigned on a full-time basis. The project manager has full authority over the project and its resources. Let's switch gears and now talk about the product lifecycle and project lifecycle. Care should be taken to distinguish the product lifecycle from the project lifecycle. The product lifecycle is the concept that a product goes through several stages in the course of its life. Let's look at this example of a product lifecycle for a desktop computer. A project undertaken to design a new desktop computer is only one phase in the product lifecycle. It's important to note here that every product lifecycle goes through similar stages. The product lifecycle starts with the idea of a new product that gets evaluated during the initiation phase. It is followed by the design desktop phase. After initial market introductions, the product is adapted and manufactured, and then it's introduced into the market and finally reaches its end of life. On the other hand, a project lifecycle shows typically distinct phases a project passes through from initiation to closure. Essentially, project managers can divide projects into phases to provide better management, planning, and control. Collectively, these phases are known as the project lifecycle. For example, in IT projects, a sample project lifecycle may include initiation, high-level design, low-level design, coding, unit testing, integration testing, user acceptance testing, and rollout. The project lifecycle is industry-specific and can be different for each project. Let's look again at our example. In this example, the project lifecycle can be applied to the design desktop phase and the launch desktop phase of the product lifecycle. One final note here is that a phase end review needs to take place at the end of each phase. These can often be referred to as phase gates, kill points, or decision gates, and are points to reassess project progress and to obtain authorization to close the current phase and/or to start the next phase. A phase end review can also be used to terminate the project if necessary. Finally, we have something called the project management lifecycle. The project management lifecycle is not industry-specific and is valid for all projects. The project management lifecycle includes the 5 project management process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. These process groups interact and overlap as shown here in this example. Project management processes are iterative, overlap, and interact with each other. This means that they are seldom one-time events. Rather, they are overlapping activities that occur throughout the project. The output of one process generally becomes an input to another process, or is a deliverable of the project, sub-project, or project phase. It's important to understand that the process groups are not project lifecycle phases. In fact, it is possible that all process groups could be conducted within a phase. For example, if you are working on a project that is separated into distinct phases, such as concept development, design, prototype, build, test, manufacture, and launch to market, all of the process groups would normally be repeated for each phase. Wow, lots of information here, but of course important. We just finished with a good overview of the organizational structures, and you should now be familiar with the various roles of project managers and stakeholders as we move forward in our study of the PMBOK. In the next video, I'll explain the process chart so that you can understand how the processes relate to the knowledge areas of project management. Now would be a good time to take a 5 or 10-minute break before we move on. Relax, put your feet up, close your eyes, and think about what type of organizational structure you have adopted in your work environment to administer projects. For starters, let's review some of the basic components of the PMBOK framework. There are 5 process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing, and a total of 10 knowledge areas. Each process group is mapped to a number of knowledge areas. Each knowledge area contains certain project management processes, and there are 47 processes. Each of these processes are described as ITTOs, or inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. Essentially, a knowledge area represents a complete set of concepts, terms, and activities that make up a professional field. project management field, or area of specialization. Each process group, in contrast, represents a particular stage during which we deal with the information we have about our project. The stages may appear to be sequential, but they can really overlap and happen at any time during a project. This is why we do not call them phases, because they aren't. For example, if you are working on a project and the project is broken down into 4 phases, then each of those phases would go through all 5 process groups. Make sense? Here are some additional examples. We have to identify stakeholders, and sometimes we may do this at a later stage in the project as well as in the beginning. In other stages, we might be planning budgets or planning how to manage communications. We might be executing and performing the communication management plan, or we could be executing and performing quality assurance regularly, altering it along the way. We will always be monitoring and controlling our budget and costs. And of course, we periodically close phases of the project and, eventually, the project itself. Finally, the 47 processes all have ITTOs, which essentially provide us project managers with details on what's needed to do that process, or inputs, what tools we can use to do that process, or tools and techniques, and the reason or purpose of the process, or outputs. And that's where we get this process chart. Yes, I know this may look overwhelming at first, but stay frosty, and by the time we've covered the knowledge areas in the next 10 modules, you'll know your way around this chart comfortably, and you will see how useful it can be. It's really fantastic, so give it a chance.